you surely out there, my vast listening audience, can't survive without great commentary and analysis on a routine basis. So here I am sharing this stuff here with the various other groups. Come on, look, where's the other one here? Um, anyway, what we're going to talk about today is basically what's been going on in the last few days on the week, where we talk about mostly, Ukraine again, but also talk about some economic news that came out that was of some significance, and also I don't know if we'll get to it. I'd like to get to it, but there was an article yesterday I saw in the New York Times about Hunter Biden and the laptop and all this other stuff. I don't know if we'll get to that. I may have to use that at a different time, but it was just interesting because now the New York Times is acknowledging exactly what the New York Post had been reporting back during the election a year and a half, 2 years ago, that there was a connection between Biden and the Ukraine and Chinese investors and all this other business, and that a neglected laptop had very incriminating information. Man, I don't know if we'll get to that or not. I hope so, but you never know. Anyway, we're talking about today, though, a lot of it's about the Ukraine because things are really moving very, very quickly, as they always do, and it's just it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on. However, uh, there were some significant events, and not all of them good, I'm afraid, but there you are. Also, some interesting, or I don't know, interesting is a word, yes, but also some disturbing economic news came out about inflation again. So anyway, let's talk about our sponsors because they're not upsetting and they're always good news. So let's talk about them for a minute or two. Thank you, Daniel CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire, trying to keep fit instead of throwing a fit, as we say. And so check out the CrossFitBurleson.com page to find out the training programs or membership plans, things of that nature. It's a workout for people who want to work out. Okay, CrossFit is no joke. So Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Also, thank you to Shandy at the Stogsdale Group. She's got a couple of homes right now. I know she's getting close to close on. It's just a very busy time in real estate this time. A lot of people want to move to the Burleson area, even if the rates are going to be getting higher pretty soon. You want to get moving on that. And also, just the Burleson area as a whole is exploding. Next Tuesday, I'm going to have Victoria Johnson on the show. We're going to talk about the Burleson growth, and then a week after that, the mayor will be on, and we'll talk about the growth and whatnot. So, Stockstill Group is somebody you need to talk to if you're going to move to this area. Thank you to Rex over at the Russell Wealth Group. Hit myfinancialbox.com. See the video he has as an introductory video. Get to know him. He can help you through all this turbulent stock market routine. He take care of your 401k and other retirement plans. There's a lot going on. You need somebody that's going to have a little bit of experience, to say the least, to help you with this. So Rex is the man to do it. Russell Wealth Group, myfinancialbucks.com. Also, thank you to Kimmy Etheridge at Optavia. There you go. Optavia, 817-789-1622. Kimmy will help you with your, not just weight loss, but weight maintenance. And it's, it helps you with a healthy lifestyle. There's coaching involved, there's a diet involved, and things of that nature. And several people I know have used it, and they really endorse it. So there you are. Also, Gayla Moore's over at Southern Gym, Fine Jewelry and Gemstones, a very sweet woman, and she has a great inventory, and she has also repairs. She was just telling me the day that she had just gentleman brought in a whole bunch of watches for repair. So if you have watches you want repair, like wristwatches or pocket watches, they could do all those things. So Fine Jewelry and Gemstones, they have great inventory. So it's on the top of the Windmiller building on in the Standard. Also, Michelle Humphrey at Outworks over on John Jones near Kroger and the theater and whatnot. Infrared spa workout, infrared system of working out where it's like yoga classes, but also, aerobics, things of that nature, but it's done within the infrared system that helps burn calories and get more effect from your workout than just an ordinary aerobic system. So this infrared system she has, a lot of people I know are using it in our BNI group, and they think it's just great. It said it's the real deal. So go check out Hotworks for a different kind of workout. Also, well, I'll save the rest for later. Let's talk about what's going on. There's several things that happened in the last week about Ukraine. Here's one thing, though. I don't know if it bothers me or not, but I'm confused by it, and that is, they say that the Russians and the Ukrainians are negotiating some sort of ceasefire, and I just gotta wonder 2 things. One is this really gonna work? I mean, Russia invaded Ukraine with very specific intentions. It isn't just like, just a bunch of made up lies about Ukraine, which there was, but he they went into Ukraine with very specific reasons, and that was because they didn't want NATO expansion, and Ukraine has said that we're not gonna be blackmailed and having somebody else choose our alliances. And the second is the historical attachment, at least in Putin's mind, that Ukraine is part of Russia, and the Ukrainian and Russian people are really one and the same. That's not gonna change. I just don't understand what the final outcome is gonna come of these talks without either the Ukraine completely abdicating itself as a country. I mean, that's the only thing I could think that will satisfy Putin, who I genuinely believe is mentally unbalanced. I think he is so tied into this vision of the greater Russia that if anything less than that is he's gonna see as a defeat. And even if we negotiate a partial peace and parts of Ukraine are annexed into Russia, which I would find to be an abysmal state of affairs, it's not gonna satisfy the long-term, visions of Putin and probably whoever comes after him. Putin is 69 years old. I have no idea about his health, and neither does anybody else. But the point is that the ambitions he used to go after Ukraine haven't changed. He still doesn't want them part of NATO, and he still doesn't want them tied to the West with the European Union or America or Australia or anybody else. He doesn't want them to be a European, Western European country. He wants them to be part of Greater Russia. That hasn't changed, and I can't see him negotiating that away, nor do I see him uh, stopping at Ukraine. There's already talk about Bosnia. There's always talk about Moldova, which is to me, Moldova is a country sounds like it's one of those Hallmark movies where he really is a prince or something like that. But Moldova is a very small country right on the edge of Ukraine. There are also the Baltic states. Anything that was under the control of the former Soviet Union, he sees as legitimate Russian territory. And I just don't see him negotiating that away. So I'm not really sure what the purpose of these talks are. But uh, if Ukraine settles, it would be a tragic thing. It'd be a catastrophe for Ukraine. And it would be basically just similar to what happened to Czechoslovakia in 1938. All that did, the Munich agreement, all that did is postpone the inevitable. And I think that's what's going to happen here. So that's the talks. I don't know. Maybe it's because we're asking them to talk or something like that. But I don't really see them resulting in anything significant at all. But there you go. Also, a few other things. Even if there is an arbitrated end to this conflict, Russia has already stained its national history and its standing in the world by the way it's conducted this war. The Russian advance more or less is stalled because what's happening is the vaunted Russian army isn't quite that vaunted after all. That the Russian army that they thought would roll through Ukraine like a hot knife through butter basically is just stuck in the mud. Their logistics are terrible. Their supply lines are cut. The reports that from the Russian POWs that the Ukrainians are taking, the Russian POWs are telling that it's total confusion on their side and morale is very low. And that many of them said that they were told that this was a military exercise and they didn't really know they were in Ukraine until they got fired upon in some cases. Now that I don't know how valid that is, but I'm just saying that the Russian army is vastly underperforming, and so because of that, Putin has gone to a very uh, horrendous civilian campaign. Ukraine's air force is minuscule. They have one, but it's very, very small. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But so for the most part, the Russian air force controls the skies, and they're bombing civilian targets. And even though the Russian propaganda either denies it or say it's just an unfortunate accident or it's collateral damage, that's a bold-faced lie. They are targeting these civilian areas, hospitals, schools. There's a big disaster going on in Mariupol, which is down near the southern part of the Ukraine where there's still about 1,300 people missing from a theater that was bombed. This theater was used as a kind of a refuge place, to for a lot of people that were trying to escape the bombing. They went to the theater, and they bombed the theater, and so far, only 130 out of the 1,300 have been recovered in terms of survivors, and we have no idea what the conditions in because they're still getting bombed. They bombed a maternity hospital in Mariupol, saying, well, it was really a site of biological warfare experiments. So that's just a bold-faced lie. And so the 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 intentional civilian bombing is in part because the Russian military advance is stalling and failing in effect. That they vastly underestimated not only the Western response but the Ukrainian response. They really thought the Ukrainian people would just roll over, and what they're happening is you've got people of all different types, from women to men to older to younger to just about every group that within Ukraine arming themselves and fighting back, and they didn't expect that. They didn't expect that, and so that's one reason why the Russian advance is stopped. They have pretty much now put all their troops into Ukraine. At one point, at the very beginning of this, only about a third of the Russian troops are actually put in. They were holding the rest in reserve. Well, there's no more reserves now. They're all in, and they're not winning. And analysts say that's a dangerous sign in itself, because the more they flail about and more they fail at their objectives, the more desperate Putin's going to get, and the more he's going to bomb civilian targets, and then he's going to resort more and more to threats of nuclear strikes, minor nuclear strike, if that's such a thing, but basically, using the nuclear option. I I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I tend to doubt it, because I think a lot of his own people would rise up and overthrow him if that actually did happen. And that's gonna I'm gonna talk about that in a minute as well. But I don't I don't see that, but what you do can't you can't dismiss it. Okay, you can't dismiss it. Now, as far as the air strike situation, President Biden's getting all the push to allow some of the NATO countries that have these MiG fighters, former Russian planes that they had captured over the course of time, and to allow them to be given to the Ukrainian military. Particularly Poland has several dozen of them apparently, and they want to give the Ukrainian army these MiGs, and in return, we would resupply Poland and other NATO countries with more up to date F-35s and things like that. And so far, Biden has resisted that. He said it's a non-starter for him and all this other business. But a lot of members of the Senate and both parties, and in the House in both parties, are saying he needs to reconsider and let Ukraine have those fighter jets, because they're just destroying all these civilian targets like I'm talking about. They're trying to bomb Kyiv into submission, and now they're going west to Lviv, and are bombing out there, and all these other towns in the southern part of Ukraine are getting just absolutely leveled because there's no opposition to Russian fighter jets. And so eh, we're not talking about sending American planes with American pilots into this conflict. What we're talking about is allowing our NATO partners that have jets, particularly these MiGs, to go and give them to Ukrainian pilots and let them fight with the but so far, Biden says that's going to be escalating the war. Another option that we keep talking about is the no-fly zone. Now, that I'm not as quite on board with, because besides, Putin has made it very clear that a no-fly zone would be considered an act of war by the United States or anybody else. So that's all there. That's all that. But a no-fly zone would inevitably draw us into a conflict, because we would have NATO planes enforcing the no-fly zone, including American planes piloted, say the right word, piloted by American pilots. And so it would be drawing us in. Now, would Putin respond with a nuclear blast or something like that if we had a no-fly zone? We don't know, because and that's kind of the part of the problem. But if we had a no-fly zone, we in effect would be involved in this war. There's no question. And we had a no-fly zone in Iraq for well over a decade after the first Gulf War. But there's a reason why we can enforce a no-fly zone. The Iraqi Air Force isn't the Russian Air Force. The Iraqi Air Force hardly existed. We didn't have any opposition. And anytime an Iraqi jet got into no-fly zone, we were able to take care of it pretty quickly. And even though we were not in a declared state of war with Iraq, we were still operating under the authorization to use military force. Now, if they go to that route, a no-fly zone, I really think we've taken a big step up in the intensity of this war, because I don't think Russia's going to allow that to happen. So, what the question is, what can we do? Well, we're sending money and supplies and military hardware and things of that nature. But I really think at the bottom line of this, it's going to have to be the Russian people themselves to do something about it. And there are growing signs that the Russian people are getting very, very unhappy about what their country is doing in Ukraine. There's a lot of cross connections between these two countries, a lot of relationships between Russian and Ukrainian friends and family, a lot of Ukrainian Russian business relationships. There are parts of the Ukraine that were considered to be like vacation spots for Russians. So there's a lot of Russian Ukrainian interaction, and so a lot of the Russian people are very upset about what their own country is doing. In fact, this may some of you may have seen this. You may not see it or hear it that well on the podcast, but if you're watching on YouTube or right now, you'll see it where a Russian newscaster interrupted the broadcast to make a protest. Do you have that booted up, Taylor? Yeah, there it is.
Российский премьер подчеркнул, надо усилить сотрудничество в рамках союзного государства, а на совещании в правительстве обсуждали, как сохранить доступность лекарств.
Okay, there it is. Very brief, but she was doing a live broadcast, and then the woman that was holding the sign was a fellow journalist. It wasn't some stranger off the street. It was somebody who worked at that station, and she was a fellow journalist, and she was arrested. Now I think she's under house arrest or something like that, but she's still able to communicate outside her home. But for a while she was disappeared, and so it was assumed that she'd been arrested. But yeah, obviously I can't read that sign unless you know Russian, but whatever. But what that sign said, besides "No War," that was written in English. That was probably for us. The rest of it says, don't believe these lies. Putin is lying to you, is what she said on that sign, and that's what she was saying. And this is happening more and more. There have been several thousand Russians that have been arrested for protesting their war. We had, of course, everybody's aware of our history of war protests, and we had some arrests. But most of the people that protested the Vietnam or Iraq War or any other war, in most cases, weren't arrested. All cases are arrested here in Russia, and so they're running out of space in Moscow and other big city jails because they're arresting so many people. I really do believe the Russian people at a certain point are going to say enough to their own country. And people say, well, that's not very realistic. Well, it happened in 1991. The Soviet Union fell because of a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons was that the Russian people and the people under Russian rule that had been breaking away, like in Hungary, like in Poland, like in Czechoslovakia, Romania, the people themselves said enough. And the Russian military wouldn't fire on its own people. They basically disobeyed the orders of the Russian leadership. And I think that's what's going to happen here at some point, that the Russian people themselves are going to say enough. And it's going to be a lot harder for the Russian military to crack down on its own people when they are in the kind of disarray and also state of confusion that I earlier described. So maybe there's some hope this week. Zelensky spoke to Congress via Zoom, I guess, or some other system, and apparently it was very, very inspiring. I read several articles about it. I was not able to watch it, but I read several articles, and the consensus was, he really, hit home run with that speech, and it has led for a greater push in Congress to restrict trade with Russia, also restrict our relationships of all kinds with Russia. Also, it's led to greater calls for greater support for the Ukrainian military in terms of hardware and software and whatever else. One last thing, Biden and Xi Jinping of China supposedly, as we're talking right now, are talking on the phone. or probably some sort of Zoom link up, I'll bet, about the Chinese support for Russia. The the Chinese have been very, very low key about their support for Russia. I mean, it's there. There's handshakes. There's photographs of Putin and Xi and all this other business. But right now, more or less support what's going on, but they're always very, very reluctant to give a full endorsement because they're trying to play both sides. They're trying to play the West, because of all the trade and all this other business, and they're trying to show support to their fellow dictatorial ally in Russia. Xi's playing a very long game here. I don't think the phone call is going to amount to anything. Not because Biden isn't going to do anything, but it's because Xi's not going to do anything. I don't think Xi is going to. He'll just give him a lot of non-answers, and a lot of evasive questions, and a lot of accusations, and then it'll be the end of it. But Xi's looking also to take Taiwan, and anytime soon, and he's gauging how we respond to Ukraine and how the West responds to Ukraine. And if we let this slip by, Taiwan is doomed if it's not already. But Xi is he's playing a lot cagier game, and I think he far outmatches Joe Biden when it comes to that kind of dual diplomacy and duplicitous diplomacy and things of that nature. Um, one last thing on this. We here in America in particular, but the West as a whole, but America in particular, seem to think that what motivates us motivates other people. That economic development is a good thing because it leads to less warlike attitudes towards your opponents. You have more connections, you have more, relationships, things of that nature. And so we take the same attitude that what motivates us and what incentivizes us to behave in a certain way will also be the same for Russia and China. So in 94, when we allowed them into the World Trade Organization under Bill Clinton, a move that many Republicans supported. So I'm not really saying it was Bill's fault. It just that was a bipartisan invitation. The understanding was is that that because China is opening itself up to trade, they're going to open themselves up to also democratic ideals and things of that nature. And then under the Bush administration, a few years later, they were invited into other trade organizations and it became a full trading partner to most European countries and on and on. And the idea was that this normalized relationship would tone down some of the harsher aspects of Chinese brutality, if you will, authoritarianism, expansionism, dictatorial approaches, and it hasn't worked. I'm not saying that the trade issues were wrong in themselves, but I think we totally misunderstood the Chinese and the Russians as to thinking that if we give them certain things and we're nice to them and we bring them into our world more, they're going to be the people are going to see the benefits of that, and they're going to want to be part of that. And that's not always working. It didn't work in North Korea as well. Numerous times, we would try to negotiate with the North Koreans under the pretext that if we just didn't treat the Kim Jong Un and his father and whomever else we were talking to over there, that we would that they would normalize their behavior and be less dictatorial. And then obviously hasn't worked. Same thing with Iran. The Iranians are not motivated by Western ideals. They're motivated by a very fundamentalist interpretation of the religion, the Shiite version of it. And that's what motivates them. And all this other business about Western norms and Western civilizing type of practices means nothing to them. And it's same Russia, same thing. This is what we're seeing with Putin is not some modern thing. This has been going on in the Russian aristocracy, whatever name they called themselves by, the expansionist view, that this has been going on for centuries, since the days of Ivan the Great and Peter the Great and Catherine the Great and all these other greats, apparently. This has been going on for centuries. And we seem to think if we trade more with them and have these cultural exchanges with them, they're going to see the light. And they're not looking for the light. They reject what we call the light. One last thing, when I was teaching at the high school, when we're talking about history, we would read something that was written in 1947. It's called The Sources of Soviet Conduct. Some of y'all that are listening or see this later may remember if you were in my class. But what it was written by the undersecretary diplomat, the second diplomat in Soviet Union, a guy named George Kennan. He was the deputy secretary to the ambassador. And he wrote this really long telegram saying, this is really what the Russians are like, regardless of what we think or what they're saying. This is what they're like. And it was so profound that his friend said, you need to publish this. He says, well, I can't because I work for the State Department and we don't want the Russians to think that this is official American doctrine here. So they published it in the summer issue of this, Foreign Affairs under the pseudonym of X. And I had my kids read excerpts from it. And the short story is that he described perfectly what the Russians are like. And it still applies today, that they're not motivated by the same things we are, that they take a longer view of history, that they don't have the same regard for human rights and civil liberties, that they see that as weaknesses of the Western world, not as attributes to be obtained. And the Chinese are the same way. They don't view and value the things we do in the same way. They don't value human rights. They don't value free expression, free religion. They don't value the validity of other people's claims to sovereignty if they think that's their land. And even if they don't. China's been expanding into Tibet and Nepal and Hong Kong, and they're going to do it in Taiwan, and they don't care one iota. And we have placed ourselves in a situation economically that cutting off trade with Russia and then particularly China is going to have devastating effects. And that's kind of where we're going to talk about on the other end of the other side of the commercial. So let's roll with those. A little soda to help get through it. Thank you, Otto, at our place. I remind y'all tomorrow at 9:00, Gracie Bransom is going to be doing a book signing at our place. Her book, The Words He Used, she'll be there. It's $10. And so, bring cash. It's easier, but she has set it for cashless payments. It's a very, very deep book for somebody so young in the faith and young. She's only 18. And it's well worth your time. So go by and say hey. She's also going to be at the Sky Bar up in Texas Brewery from 1 to 3. So if you can't make it in the morning because you got kids got soccer or whatever got going on, you can make it in the afternoon or vice versa. You can make one of those two. She also has started her podcast. The first one came out. Taylor, when's the next podcast for Grace coming out?
It'll drop Monday at 11 a.m.
11 a.m. Monday. Okay, so check it out. And she's very excited about this. We're helping her put together some sponsors for her, help defray some of the cost of it. So it's impressive for a young lady. And so go by and say hey, check out her book, things of that nature. Also, Chris Notaboom over at Wild Cigar and Culture. And he's got the humidors going on, and he's got the sales going on. Yesterday or the day before, I don't know, I saw an article about the most expensive cigars in the world. They were $1.36 million per cigar, not per box, per cigar. Taylor, can you imagine buying a cigar that's almost $1.36 million?
I can think of some other things I would want to spend with that money.
Probably another Tesla, I'm sure.
That would be one of the things, yes.
Well, I'm just saying, but literally, you're buying over $1 million cigar just to go up and smoke. And I texted him, hey, do you got these on the shelf? And he says, sure, I do. I got a whole box with your name on it. But no, he doesn't have. The cigars are a lot less than $1 million. So anyway, he's got a great supply. So there you are. Also, get yourself a decent drink. You can watch the ball games. It's March Madness is on all weekend. It's going to be a quiet place to watch the game. So it's a good thing. So Wild Cigar and Culture over at the Standard. Also, Tony Basallo with Proactive Payment Solutions. If you're looking for a point of sales operation, he can help you with that. Better rates, better systems, more convenience, which one fits your needs better. So proactivepaymentsolution.com, hit that link and you'll find out how you can improve or obtain a POS system, and that'll help you with your sales. And it can make you more mobile as well. Also, Beagle's Technology Solutions, make your home a smart home. Also, he has the videography that he's emphasizing. So if you're a contractor, realtor, insurance adjuster, anything like that, you could do that. If you're looking to make a commercial with Taylor, which is a good idea, maybe you could use some aerial footage from beaglestech.com. But anyway, 817-944-3572. Talk to Payne. Good man. Tiffany, how you doing over there at Local Life Magazine? We're about a couple of weeks away from the newest issue. She's already working pretty hard. She says the third week is the busiest week, so she's going to be pretty tied up next week. But Local Life Magazine has been in your mailbox. It's been on the coffee tables. I go into like a business here in Burleson. I see it on the coffee table or see it at the counter, things of that nature. So if you want your business to be seen by 30,000 people or homes and businesses and over 110,000 people, advertise with Tiffany. She does a really, really good job of putting your product out there. Also, lastly, Burleson Radio, your voice, your station. I have had several comments about the new format, and they like it. I kind of narrowed it down quite a bit. But it's mostly classic American music, so to speak. I mean, there's some British people in there, but mostly it's classic American based or style music, and they really, really like it. It goes all the way 50s to date, so it's some good stuff. And I like the format better. It's a little less all over the road. All right, a couple of things coming on. I'll mention the farmers markets on April 2nd opens up with our friend Chas Forster. We had him in the studio yesterday, and that podcast will be dropping, I guess, as soon as we're done here. And so you can check out what's going on with him. And at the end of the show, I'll talk about other upcoming guests. Anyway, economically speaking, this idea that all our economic problems are being caused by Putin and his war in Ukraine and our ban on oil is a charade, and it's not being accepted by most American people. Any traction at all because everybody understands that the gas prices were rising long before that this happened. And I'm driving around the state and I see the gas prices have leveled off a little bit. And in a couple of places that they come down about a dime, but they're still anywhere from $3.80 to $4, depending on where you're at in the Metroplex. And that was going on before, or rising to that level before Putin and this oil ban. The problem I've had with Biden about all of this is not that he banned the oil from Russia. My problem is we shouldn't have been buying it in the first place. So we have the resources here to be energy independent. But because it isn't, and it's just not just the moratorium on drilling that's causing this problem, at least the moratorium on federal land, we should understand this. The majority of oil that's produced in this country is done on state or privately owned land. The state of Texas only has 4% of its land under federal control. The rest is private or state owned. The problem, more than just the drilling aspect of it, which exists, is the transportation of it. Because of the banning or the prohibition or the moratorium on pipelines, for the most well known as the Keystone Pipeline up in the Dakotas, because of the moratorium on that, we can't ship oil through a pipeline. So we use the more polluting and more dangerous method of trucks and trains. And for a lot of people, it's much more expensive to get it from American producers. So that's why we've been buying from foreign producers, because it's not just that we won't allow drilling. That's part of it. State of New York, state of California, they put a moratorium on their drilling. And so they have to get their oils from foreign sources. And that's what the real problem I have with Biden is in his energy policy, not just because he's wearing, the Green New Deal hat and all this other stuff, even though as a member of the Senate, he was not notoriously known for his strong environmental views. No, my problem is that we find ourselves in these situations as if these things won't ever happen to us, and all my stars. And look what's happened. And now we're negotiating with Iran again. That took about a week hiatus. Now we're back on. We are talking with the Venezuelans, a government we don't even recognize, nor do we recognize Iran for that matter. We're also talking again with the Saudis. Supposedly Biden's going to go take a trip to Saudi Arabia with his hat in his hand to beg them to make more oil. And the environmental impact of this is what's driving me crazy. We could drill oil better and more effectively, efficiently, environmentally safe here than they can in Venezuela or Iran, who don't care one iota about the environment. I would ask my green friends, oil is, at least for the time being, is the way it is. I mean, it is the means of our energy. Now we can, strive to develop green energy processes and technologies, and that we shouldn't just ignore all that. But today, right now, the use of fossil fuels is how our electricity and our propulsion and our industries are all fueled by. And all these one days in the future doesn't get me to work today. All right. And we put ourselves in a situation by these restrictive policies on ourselves. And now we're forced to go to tyrannical countries, countries that hate us, or countries that at the very least tolerate us, like the Saudis. And we overlook what's going on in Saudi Arabia. We overlook what's going on certainly in Venezuela or Iran, the human rights abuses on their own people. We just turn a blind eye to that because we've hamstrung our own oil and gas industry here. And I had some responses to that. Said, well, it takes a while for it to produce, and there's all this, paperwork, and a lot of it still was, hangover from the Trump administration's, policies and whatever else, and on and on. And all that's great. But the point of the matter is gas is very, very expensive, and it didn't have to be. And we are putting ourselves in submission to countries that hate us, like we did in the 70s and 80s, when we didn't have to be. And that's where my real problem comes up with a lot of this. As far as its impact on the economy, well, the inflation's here to stay. The Federal Reserve basically said the inflation we're seeing now is going to be around for another couple of years. That their goal is to have it down to under 3 by 2024. But next month is still going to be 7.5 to 8% easily. There are various indexes of inflation that they go by, but one is the producer's price index. What's happening at the production and wholesale level of prices, and last month they went up 10%. It came out. The report came out Monday or Tuesday, I think. That last month they went up 10%. Well, not all of it, but a great big majority of it, of that 10%, is going to be translated in the consumer price index. Some of that increase may be absorbed by the businesses themselves, but it's going to translate probably to another 8.1% inflation again. And this is it. We can expect inflation at this level for the next few months. Certainly, I think forward to the rest of the year. And this is not just me saying it. I'm quoting Larry Summers, and if you don't know who Larry Summers is, I don't blame you. He was one of the chief economists in the Clinton and in the Obama administrations, and he said we are headed towards stagflation. This is a Democrat. He used to be president of Harvard for a while until he got tired of dealing with all that crap. But Larry Summers is an award-winning economist, and he's predicting stagflation. And again, this is not some guy you'd see ever see on Fox News. This is a guy who worked for Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and is an advisor to Joe Biden. I don't think he officially works for the administration, but he is somebody that they talk to. And he's saying stagflation is going to be hitting very soon. And if you don't know what stagflation is, you didn't take my class, dadgummit. Stagflation is the combination of high unemployment and high inflation at the same time. Normally speaking, in our system, when inflation's a problem, unemployment tends not to be, and vice versa. But in stagflation, like we experienced in the 1970s and early 80s, when we had very high inflation and very high unemployment, Summers is saying we're heading that direction right now. And that's sobering. We're in for a pretty serious crash, I think, and is not. I don't see ourselves having a Great Depression style crash, but I do see we're having a very significant recession coming. A very significant recession coming. How much of this is to blame to Joe Biden? Some. I mean, there are a lot of factors that go into the economic situation, but he deserves some of it with his massive deficit spending and his flooding the economy with cash, and with the restrictions he's put on production, the restrictions he's put on not just in fossil fuel production, but just all sorts of heavy industry. And I think it's all combining it now, and they want to blame Putin for it, and it's just embarrassing. His approval right now at the Real Clear Politics is 13.9 as of this morning. That's terrible. Now, is there going to be a wipeout in the Democrats in the next election? I don't know. I was talking about that with my DBU class today, and I tend to think it's not going to be as big of a wipeout as they think, not because the Republicans will blow it, which they're real good at doing, or the Democrats, will make a very good case for what's going on, which is happening already. I just think the way these districts are so gerrymandered, it's going to be very difficult for a big wave election ever to take place. There's only going to be about 20 to 30 contested seats under the way both parties have drawn the districts in their various states. Lastly, we end up with Hunter Biden, that ne'er-do-well nitwit, that he sells paintings for $500,000 a piece. Oh, yes, what a great work of art you have here, Hunter. And I'll tell your dad my regards. It's a disgrace. All right. Hunter Biden, if you're not aware of all the accusations, he had profited from Joe's prominence as a senator and then vice president and then as a presidential candidate and now president. Had profited and prospered greatly with his business connections in Ukraine and China. This oil and gas company called Burleson in Ukraine, they paid him several $1 million for nothing, just for being Hunter Biden, to be on their board. Had no industry experience, no oil and gas experience at all, but he was Hunter Biden. So he got several $1 million in payment just to be on their board. And same with his business partner, who's now in jail. Well, a lot of this came out right before the election when Hunter Biden, I don't know how I could do this, but he neglected to pick up his laptop. He had taken his laptop to a repair shop in Delaware and just never picked it up again. And the repair guy takes a look into it eventually and sees all this FBI-related information and all this other incriminating information. So he calls in the FBI. He, calls and they take the laptop. New York Post was all over this story. And then they got shut down. Twitter shut them down. Facebook shut them down. Most of the social media platforms, YouTube shut them down. The New York Post found itself silenced about the Hunter Biden story. Yesterday, the New York Times, everybody's favorite liberal paper, started their reporting and said this actually did happen, that Hunter Biden did leave his laptop, and there's a lot of incriminating evidence on it. And some of that evidence points not just towards Hunter, but towards Joe Biden and his brother James Biden. But that Joe Biden not only was aware of what Hunter was doing, but he helped it along. Now, so far, there's no evidence that any money made its way to Joe Biden, but it's quite obvious that Joe Biden made this possible, acknowledged it, supported it under this new evidence that was found. Or it wasn't found yesterday. It was found 2 years ago. It's now just the New York Times is reporting it. And now the national media has picked up the story. Back then, the only two outlets were Fox and New York Post. And, they're right-wing kooks, whatever. But they were right on this story. And there's emails that talk about how they're saving a piece of the action for the big guy, which is Joe Biden, and all this other stuff. If you want to see what it's about, just, most of y'all have access to New York Times. If you think this is not a big deal, that everybody does it, well, this is the kind of thing that people jumped all over Donald Trump for, and rightfully so. I'm not alibiing for Trump. It's not like, well, now that, it's okay that Joe did it because Donald did it or vice versa. It's both wrong. But this is exactly what they were talking about with Donald Trump, about his kids profiting from his presidency, and that he himself would find ways to make money off the presidency, such as, having that very expensive hotel in D.C. or having Mar-a-Lago host several White House level type events and then bill the government for it and that kind of stuff. And that yes, there's no excuse. That's wrong. I'm not alibiing that one iota, but I don't want to hear any alibis for Joe Biden either. I want to see this investigated thoroughly. And Hunter Biden is a plague and a cancer on the public life. He's my Sunday school decorum that I prevent me from saying what I really think and the words I'd really use. But he's a con man from the word go, and he has used his position as Joe Biden's son to profit millions of dollars, and he's lived a very negligent lifestyle and inappropriate lifestyle, at least by my Baptist standards. So there you are. But anyway, so check this out. I think there's a lot more to this Hunter Biden story. And now that the New York Times is going to look at it, apparently, you may hear a lot more about it in the evening news. Anyway, that's about it for today. Here's the schedule for the next few weeks or days. Monday, I'm going to talk with the people from Safe Space. Safe Space, if you may remember, I'm going to check out the stuff they sent me just to make sure. Safe Space is what you see like at the QT gas stations. So what it's meant for is it's a safe space type of a situation in case there is uh, a need to escape an abusive relationship, or for runaways to go to if they're trying to escape trafficking situations and all this. And so the whole idea of the safe space is that it provides a place where people can go to. And so we're going to be talking to the leaders of that organization. um, let's see, I'm trying to find her name exactly so I can yes, here it is. Marissa McKenzie is her name. We'll be talking about Safe Place. Actually, it's Safe Place. Okay, I'm sorry if I said it. It's Safe Place. Safe Place is, again, it's the same situation. It's that big yellow yield sign you see at QT. I saw them on the DART stations. I saw them several places around here. Now that I'm looking for them, I see them all the time. And the Safe Place is again a place that people can go to for temporary protection against an abusive or violent situation. And so Marissa McKenzie and I will be talking about this on Monday. Tuesday, Victoria Johnson on. Victoria and I will be talking about the bond issues that we're coming up with, and also some other issues that are coming our way. I've had a couple of people say, is this happening? Is this happening with the city? And I tell you, of course, the best source is Sarah Carlson's Municipal Matters page. She seems to know everything, but Victoria will be on Tuesday. I'm going to be in schedule conflict on Thursday, so we're going to do a show again on Friday. And right now, it's an open show. I don't have any guests lined up, so I may just do this wrap up again, or I may get somebody at the last minute. On the 28th, I have Lisa Boltinghouse and Bianca Lowry from the Center for ASD, and they're going to be talking about their fundraising coming up in April and also their activities. They've been on the show. Lisa's been on the show before, and I got a lot of response for that one. On the 29th, Mayor Fletcher will be on. We're going to talk again about bonds and probably other city issues, growth, infrastructure, etc. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. On March 29th, rather. And then on March 31st, I got the First Lady of Burleson, Mary Slaney, on, and Joni Vadnoy, whom y'all see quite often in these promotions for Old Town. So we'll be talking about what's going on there and the city as a whole. So we got a very full next couple of weeks. I invite you to share these opportunities with your friends, because you'll learn a lot about what's going on in the Burleson community in the next couple of weeks, and some really good information. So, Taylor, dadgummit, let's run these ads real quick. Dadgummit. Yes, thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson, for making all this possible. Check out his webpage, CrossFitBurleson.com, for the plans and the programs. Thank you, Shandy. If you're looking to buy a home in this area, talk to her quick. And also thank you for that 817life.com page. It talks a lot about what's going on in the 817, and not just in Burleson strictly, but all around us, Mansfield, Arlington, Crowley, etc. Thank you, Rex, the mayor of Eagan, over at the Russell Wealth Group, myfinancialbox.com. Hit the link and get to know him, get to talk about your retirement plans, your 401ks, et cetera, and you'll be glad to get a little coffee with him over in Cleveland, or he'll come here to Burleson for you and probably meet you at our place. He does that a lot. I see them there several times with current and potential clients. Also, thank you to Kimmy at Optavia, Kimmy Etheridge, 817-789-1622 for weight loss and weight maintenance and lifestyle. Thank you to Gayla Moores over at Southern Gym for jewelry repair, design, cleaning, inventory. She has the whole 9 yards, top floor of the Windmiller building. She's looking to expand pretty soon too. So business is good. I tell her it pays to advertise. Anyway, thank you, Gayla. Thank you to Michelle over at Hotworks and their infrared workout system. And a lot of people, again, like I said, really swear by it. And it's very, very effective. So Hotworks over on John Jones by Kroger and the movie theater. And if you're looking for a good workout, a different type of workout, Hotworks is your place. Also, thank you to Our Place Restaurant. Tomorrow, I remind you, Grace Branson will be having her book signing there. Also, I remind you that it's great food and it's a great place. I don't have to remind you of that, actually. Everybody knows that. Thank you, Otto, for what you do for this community, not just the good food and good service, but just the hospitality you're showing Grace and others. Also, thank you to Chris. March Madness is on, so you can go there, have a smoke, have a decent drink, have a conversation, watch a little hoop. So get your gift certificate. If you don't know what the person in your life likes to smoke, then find out and get a gift card. So he's got the whole thing going on over there at the Standard. Also, thank you to Antonio over at Proactive Payment Solutions to help you with your point of sales operations, with programming, and with the rates. So talk to Tony. We're negotiating, if you will. We're trying to pin down a time in early April for him to be on the show, and I'm waiting to hear from him pretty soon. But he has a very interesting story, and I think it needs to be told. So Proactive Payment Solutions, and they'll help you with the point of sales. Paying Beagles over at beaglestech.com or 817-944-3572. Beagles Technology Solutions will help make your home a smart home, help you migrate your data from one system to another. It'll help you put everything on your phone so you can operate from there. Also, the video drone areography. Is that a word? I don't know. He could take drone pictures, the videography with a drone. And so if you're looking for as a contractor or an insurance adjuster or roofer or whatever else, he can help you with some drone footage. Also, thank you to Tiffany at Local Life. I hope things are going well for you. She's a very busy time. She also has, by the way, I should remind you, if you want to help out with Centennial High School's after prom celebration, she's the person to talk to. She's trying to raise money. She has a golf program coming up, a golf tournament, as a better word, coming up, and so helping to raise money for this. So if you're a Centennial parent or grandparent or friend of Centennial, friend of BISD, call her and help her out with this golf tournament or other fundraisers. And lastly, Burleson Radio. Here it is. Burleson Radio, Live 365. Check out the new format. And there you are. Now, I'll see y'all on Monday in the studio with the ladies from Safe Place, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an interesting show. And thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all next time.